Okay, perfect. All right. Good morning. This is Richie Cantardesi coming to you live from sunny and beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, with another episode of Salespreneur. And today we have a special guest, as you can see here to my right. And this is my mom. And I'm very excited for her to be on here today and share some seriously valuable information with you when it comes to starting, growing, running, maintaining everything business related. She has owned a dance studio for 32 years. And over that period of time has grown, has had issues, has had students leave, has built um, different locations. So she's done a lot of different things um, in a lot of different ways. And I have some questions that I'm going to ask her so that you guys can learn a little bit on sales and entrepreneurship and owning a business, what it takes, the challenges that you'll face, how to overcome those challenges so that you can be successful as well. So I know we got some people on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm going to try to answer any comments on Facebook or on Instagram. So if you do have questions, make sure to leave your comments or to leave your questions now, and I will get back to you at the end. So, Mom, take the stage. So tell us a little bit about just going from let's start from the very beginning and getting started. What was it like getting started with the studio, with the business? Like, tell us about getting started.
Well, I just want to tell you a little bit about when you were an infant, a baby, and I didn't actually have a brick and mortar to start. I would get you two kids into the car along with all my supplies, and I would go to preschools and teach, and then come home, feed you lunch, take your nap, and then we would go to after school programs. And I did that actually for a few years. And then decided, oh, and then on Saturday mornings, I also rented a karate space. So I started to build students and a reputation. And at that point, decided to build my first brick and mortar studio. And so I started very small with one room and about 125 students, which isn't a bad base.
How'd you start with 125 students?
Just from the schools, because we did a different preschool every day, sometimes more than one, and a different after school program every day, and then Saturday mornings. So I had taught, I had been in Florida for a short period of time and taught in another studio, so I knew some people. And I just felt like I didn't love the way the studio owner dealt with his clients, and he just didn't treat them very well. Like he'd run away. He'd literally run away
Yeah.
when they came into the office. And I thought, no, I think I can do better than that. And I love dance from when I was a kid. I used it to express myself, and I loved it, immersed in the music and the movement. So anyway, so I began the studio, and I did most of the work myself, and I taught a lot of classes.
All right, I wanna pause this for a second, only because I know a lot of people that are listening to this. There's two things. Some of them who are wanting to start a business already have kids or are single parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to touch on that a little bit. And the other thing is getting started with clients. So a lot of people get started without any clients, and you got started. You had almost 125, which is epic. But what did you do beforehand so that when you got started, you could start with 125 clients? And I know some people, depending on where you are, what business you have, starting with 125 is going to be really difficult. But even starting with one client or one, whatever, or one student or whatever, uh, being able to start with something versus nothing, so that you're generating revenue. That's the key is generating revenue, right? So if you started with 125, how did you do that? You said you went to schools.
Well, I had to start actually finding schools that would be willing to allow me in and run my program in their building. Now, keep in mind, 32 years ago, there was no internet, Instagram, Facebook. There was a word processor. That's what we had. So brochures were done by typing into a word processor, cutting, pasting, gluing, taping, folding, taking to the print shop, and being printed. So it
Gotcha.
was a very, very different, so much physical work compared to today, which is more mental work. But once I got the schools, the school after school programs, and the daycares to allow me in, then parents loved enrichment for their children, and especially the convenience of being right there where the kids already were.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of businesses that still do that today. Um, and then I also just, the dance community is fairly small, and at that time it was pretty small. And and kids just started hearing about it. And I kept my program fairly light and fun. And to be quite honest with you, because I was renting, the amount of money that I charged was less than where they would pay anywhere else. So if you could give good quality at a lower rate to start, I was making money from the beginning, which is, I guess, a pretty nice business model. So I really didn't have to give up anything except my time. The difference was when I built the location and started teaching in the studio,
Yeah.
then I was giving up time with my children.
Gotcha. So one big takeaway that I took from that is if you're getting started, one thing to think about is it's okay to, we don't always want to be the cheapest, but if we have to lower our price a little bit in the beginning just to get those first few clients. I know in the beginning, especially when I was speaking, I would lower my fee drastically because if they were willing to give a testimonial or review, because that is way more powerful in the end than getting a fee. I would rather have that great review. So when you're getting started, having those testimonials, that social proof, finding, being able to display that on your website or send letters or whatever that looks like is extremely valuable. So
And there's no difference now from then. And even up until, the last few weeks that I was in business, word of mouth was absolutely the greatest thing. That's what built my business. And every customer, every parent, every kid that came through that door was special to me. And word of mouth always was the greatest advertisement for me.
yeah.
And I felt that doing the right thing, creating the right environment was super important.
So how did you create the right environment?
Well, I
What is the
wanted
right, like if we talk about customer service, customer success, like we want to, so we have the way that we run marketing, and then we have this second piece that we can systemize, and that's referrals, and that's getting people after we've done business with them to recommend and have us do business with somebody that they know. Not always easy to systemize, and it's not always guaranteed. So we have the marketing aspect of it that we have to figure out because we want to get that constant, regardless of referrals, new business coming in. So let's talk about the referral thing for a second and creating that customer success, that customer service that gets people to say, I need to tell this to other people. I have to share this with somebody else, and then they become salespeople for you. So what did you do to create that? Like, what did you do to get people to sell your business for you?
Well, to be honest with you, Richie, initially I didn't even think along those terms. Um, I guess because I loved what I did, I it it just people recognized that.
Yeah.
So in my case with the studio, you are dealing with the parent, but your interaction is 90% with the child.
Yeah.
And if any of you are parents, you know that if your kids are happy and they like what they're doing, the parent is going to be very happy. And so they'll go to the friends, they'll be talking and say, oh, my daughter takes this and she loves it. And the teacher is so kind to her. And, even when I'm teaching now, I'm still teaching, the kids walk into my room and I don't know where those kids have been. I don't know what their home environment is. And they walk in I love when they come into my room and they know that and they feel that. And the parents, of course, can see that too. So I That came naturally to me and easy. So word of mouth, was quite easy. But initially, then the kids are then not the problem; it's the parents. So as you move on to bigger and better, then the parents become like, well, why is dance moms?
Yeah.
Everybody knows what that is, and whether your child is in football or soccer or skating,
Yeah.
you have that problem. And that was the most difficult part of running my business, was the parents, sad to say. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just like, I'm looking at the side of your computer, and I'm seeing core values, ethics and integrity, always do the right thing. I think from, when I was a little child, that was super important to me. And if I ever thought that I had wronged a parent or a customer or a child, I couldn't sleep that night. And it would bother me until I made it right.
Yeah.
And if that was just the way I ran my business, and I wouldn't go back and change a thing about that. There probably are some things I would change,
Yeah.
but that would not be one of them.
Of course. And I want to talk about that, some of the things you would have changed so that people can learn from it. But I do want to talk about this because I know on Facebook specifically, there are going to be a few. There's going to be those people who are starting a business with tough circumstances, whether they are or they're in sales with tough circumstances, whether they're a single mom or they've got family issues or they have people in their family have health issues. You were somewhat of a single mom with a couple kids trying to run a dance studio and traveling. How are you able to overcome that? Help people with that. Like, what does that look like?
That looks like getting up every morning and being relentless at what you do. First of all, there's nothing more important than your children. So that's number one, day in and day out. So making sure my kids were taken care of and were at the right school and doing the right thing and doing their homework and eating properly and sleeping properly, that was number one on my mind. So every day I had to make sure that was taken care of. Then secondly, I had to keep a roof over our head. So maintaining my business and making sure that I had good teachers, a good staff, and that in addition to my kids being taken care of. So you're working a lot. You can't be a slacker, as they say. And you've got to make sure, if your kids need to have a babysitter, that they have the right person. It's hot. It's definitely difficult, challenging, and every day is a different scenario. But you love what you do, and you're excited, and you are driven, and that's what takes you through every day. Even when I was a professional dancer, every day I would get up and get out there and see so many people fail because they just didn't have the drive, the passion.
Yeah.
And so if it means that much to you, get up every day, and you have so much purpose in your life. And I think I would have tried to create a little more balance had I had a time.
Yeah.
Because 18 years later, when you kids were graduating high school, I remember crying.
Yeah.
And thinking, where did that time go?
Goes
and
by
now,
fast.
even 32 years later, I just think, I look at my grandchildren and think, where did that time go?
Yeah.
So my main thing would be to just love every moment that you're doing it, and understand that if you are driven and you are passionate, that you will find a way through the hardships. It will happen. And as stressed as you are at some points, you can just believe in yourself, take a moment and say, you will find a way and you will make this happen.
I love it.
And that's
Super
where so
important.
many people will fall and not keep going.
Super important. Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me and with everybody here. And for all the people that will be coming by after. So I want to jump into the business side of this a little bit. So, taking a dance studio to, $500,000 a year in revenue is pretty hard to do. especially in an area where there's lots of them, lots of dance studios. So
Right.
that's obviously it takes a lot of processes and people, and a lot of times, we want to really pull the most out of everybody around us and maximize the potential of everybody on our team, our staff, anybody who can help us get to where we want to go. So for you, that would be your staff, your teachers, even, potentially like other people around in the building and other areas. So of that, what did you do? How did you maximize the potential of your staff and of your teachers and of your front desk and the parents that would volunteer? How do you do that? It's a very difficult thing to do.
It is. It is very difficult. First of all, you can't, in my business, you can't do all the work. And although in the beginning I did try to do that, we soon realized that that's not a winning process, or that's not a road to success in any way, shape, or form. So I had to reach out and find teachers that had the same, that felt very similar in their values as I did. And so I found teachers that were that felt strongly about what they did, and their success was based on the success of the students.
Yeah.
And so that's what I needed. I didn't want a teacher to just come in, and there are teachers out there, and I had them for a short period of time, and quite a few of them that would come in and love to look at themselves in the mirror and occasionally look at a student. And it's interesting, as you go through hiring and firing. But honestly, I've had teachers with me 25 years, 22 years. And the teachers that I do get, that I see that in, I really try to nurture and talk to them. And when they're down, if their students leave or something happens with the parent, I'm always there to pick them up and help them understand that this is going to happen, but that their talent and their love will help them through. And I think that nurturing and guiding and support of my teachers, and being as a team, not as a boss, and
Yeah.
this level,
Yeah.
was super important. And I love so many of my teachers throughout the years, and they always thought that teaching at my studio was probably the best job that they had because of
Awesome.
that. Yeah.
Very
So the hard part is just letting go of someone that doesn't end up, that strolls in 5 minutes after classes to begin and thinks that's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So you have, I was super, that customer service
Yeah.
was important.
Yeah.
Because back then, believe it or not, customer service was not great,
Yeah.
no matter where you went, because there was no Yelp.
Yeah,
There
there's
was
no
no
reviews. Yeah,
There was nobody to say anything.
Pre-reviews.
So you would go about your day from one place to another, just being treated terrible.
Yeah.
And I swore I would never do that.
Yeah.
So that's not to say I didn't have some moments.
Yeah.
With customers.
I remember some of these
moments with customers.
All right. Well, what would you say, and we'll end on this one, but what would you say was your biggest challenge of running and owning a business, and how did you overcome that challenge, learn from it, and get better?
Well, I had very, very little physical support. So I had no family around. I was new to the area. Well, no, when you kids were little, when your kids were little, and it was all physical and emotional, taking care of two young children and the studio. I didn't have, I wasn't able to say, "Hey, Mom, can you come over and help me out?" Or that kind of support.
Yeah.
So everything felt to me, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Every day, that's scary.
Yeah.
So, but I don't ever remember thinking I can't do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thought that crossed my mind.
Right.
So, But I think if I look back, one
Biggest
of
challenge.
the
What would you
biggest
say?
challenges was that I assumed everybody had the same values that I did. I don't know why I did assume that, but I did. From growing up, my friends, we were all very, very similar. Now I'm, in this area. I was raised up north. Now I'm in South Florida, and it was very enlightening to me to see the lack of loyalty, the lack of caring and kindness that I just thought was innate in everyone.
Yeah. So okay. So let me dissect this for a second. So when you're running and operating a business or a sales team, it's having to not about all of the processes and the mindset and all these things. What you're saying was the hardest thing was having to, because like you can't get through any of this without working with people.
Right.
And so you're saying the hardest thing for you was actually the constant effort of having to work with so many different vast types of people with different values and different thought processes and different ways of doing things.
Right. I think so. I
Okay.
really do. It's something you don't think about, right?
No, not really.
No, because you're
You do
analytically.
not as much, but
You do, right. Analytically, you put your business down on paper. You have a business plan. You have thoughts in your mind how you're going to go. But throughout your, especially early on, when you battle so many things, after a while, these things kind of rotate through your business. You kind of get used to what's about to come.
yeah.
But initially, I think that was the hardest part
So
for
you
me.
learn the market, learn people, just learn how to do it. Because
Yeah,
like there's that is very, very true. As you learn, you kind of get you can almost predict what people are going to do.
absolutely,
You
for
understand.
sure.
You're like, okay, these things keep happening. This person keeps doing these things. This is going to be the next thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've actually noticed that. So I've seen that. So just predicting and knowing, and just understanding how to work with people, how people
Correct.
think, how you work with people. Just really just figuring that aspect out of just human interaction in general. It's
And
very
your
difficult.
relationships, whether they're with your customers, your employees, your team, your vendors, who you work with, you know, um, every relationship is important.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, that is it. Is there anything else you want to add? Just because we've been
No, not really. I
23.
just think I love the word relentless and passion. And I was passionate when I was a dancer in New York, and I was passionate about owning my studio, and now I'm passionate about my grandchildren and children. So
It moves on.
it moves on. Yep, there's a time for
Let's see.
everything.
Let's see if there's any.
Thanks so much for sharing this time with me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for being on here. She's in town visiting.
My
And
fourth grandchild,
yes.
sweet little Carmela.
And I've been told that I need to shave. Okay. We'll see.
I agree.
I'm
Whoever
going out
said
of
that,
town this
just
week and
saying.
we'll see. Okay. All right.
I've been told I need to shave.
That's it. If you guys have any questions for my mom, for Patty, you can find her. It's Patty, same last name as mine, on Facebook. Feel free to friend her and ask her any questions that she has. She is on her next journey, sold her dance studio, and is going to move on to her next journey, which she's going to figure out. And I know it's not going to be just retirement. There's no way.
No.
But if you have any questions for her, comment on this, and I'll make sure she looks at it, or find her on Facebook. All right. Have a great week.